The true warrior's weapon is not his sword, but his will. Miyamoto Musashi. There are few names in history that echo through the ages with as much reverence as Miyamoto Musashi, a swordsman who lived and breathed conflict, yet transcended it. A man who faced over 60 duels, never defeated, but whose greatest battle was never against another man. It was against himself. Musashi understood something most never grasp. That true strength is not forged in muscle or steel, but in mind and will, the unseen sword that cuts through fear, doubt, and weakness. In his legendary text, The Book of Five Rings, written in the solitude of his final years, Musashi revealed the principles that guided him to mastery, not just to combat, but of life itself. His words are not relics of the past. They are a map for the modern warrior. For anyone who seeks control over their own chaos, discipline over distraction, and peace within conflict. This is not merely a story of a samurai. It is a journey inward toward the unbreakable will that lies dormant within you. Musashi once wrote, "Perceive that which cannot be seen with the eye. The will cannot be touched, weighed, or measured, yet it defines everything. It is the invisible flame that determines whether you rise or fall, endure or surrender, create or decay." But most people misunderstand willpower. They see it as something mystical, something you either have or you don't. Musashi teaches us otherwise. He believed willpower is trained like a sword, through the friction of resistance and the repetition of deliberate practice. He saw life as a dojo, every challenge, every discomfort, every failure as a sharpening stone for the spirit. He said, "You must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain. The essence of this is adaptability, but also commitment." Musashi mastered multiple arts: swordsmanship, painting, calligraphy, strategy, and philosophy. He wasn't chasing perfection in one thing. He was disciplining the mind to conquer anything. That's where true willpower begins. Not in motivation, but in repetition without emotion. The willingness to keep walking the path even when it's steep, silent, and unseen. When Musashi trained, he stripped away comfort deliberately. He slept without a pillow, lived in solitude, and refused luxury. He understood that the mind grows soft when fed too much ease. He cultivated discomfort like a seed, because he knew comfort is the enemy of will. In modern life, our battles are not fought with swords, but with distractions, glowing screens, endless noise, temptations of comfort. Every scroll, every indulgence is a tiny surrender. Each time you choose convenience over effort, your inner blade dulls. To unlock unbreakable willpower, you must forge it daily in small fires. Wake early when the mind protests. Focus when the world screams for attention. Do what must be done, not what feels pleasant. Discipline is not punishment, it is liberation. For Musashi, freedom did not come from doing whatever he wished. It came from mastering himself so completely that nothing external could shake his resolve. He lived by the truth that the will is a muscle, and every act of resistance strengthens it. Every time you say no to weakness, you say yes to strength. Each refusal to quit is an act of spiritual sharpening. He wrote, "You can only fight the way you practice." That is not just a call to warriors. It's a call to every human being who faces hardship. If you live carelessly, you will crumble under pressure. But if you live deliberately, if every day you choose the harder path, you become unbreakable long before the storm arrives. So ask yourself, what do you do when no one is watching? What do you practice when there's nothing to gain but inner strength? That is your dojo. That is your forge. Musashi's first secret to unbreakable willpower is this: treat every moment as training. Every frustration is a teacher. Every failure is a mirror. Every temptation is a test. Do not waste time waiting for the perfect opportunity to be strong. Strength is born in the moments you least want to show it. Reflection. To begin walking Musashi's path in modern times, simplify your environment. Remove what weakens focus. Commit to routines that challenge comfort. Cold showers, daily writing, mindful silence. When the mind resists, do it anyway. The point is not the act, but the obedience of the will. Over time, resistance becomes fuel, pain becomes signal, and the will, once fragile, becomes steel. Musashi reminds us that the battle is never outside. The true duel is between the version of you that wants ease and the version that demands mastery. The one you feed becomes your destiny. The way is in training. Miyamoto Musashi, The Book of Five Rings. When people speak of willpower, they often imagine fire, passion, energy, a burning drive that pushes them forward. But Musashi's was not made of fire. It was forged in stone, cold, immovable, enduring. He understood a truth that most modern minds run from. Discipline outlasts desire. Desire rises and falls like waves. It's unstable. You might wake one morning feeling unstoppable, only to crumble the next day under the weight of laziness or fear. But discipline, the quiet commitment to act regardless of emotion, is the true expression of will. Musashi lived by a simple rule: never rely on moods to decide your actions. In the Book of Five Rings, he wrote, "Control your spirit. Do not allow your mind to be distracted." To him, distraction wasn't just a break in focus. It was a weakness in character. He believed that a person who cannot master their own impulses is a slave, even if they appear free. The enemy within. Musashi never romanticized battle. He saw combat as a mirror for the soul, a place where the truth of one's preparation, mindset, and fearlessness was exposed. He often said, "When you attain the way of strategy, there will not be one thing you cannot see." This meant clarity, the ability to see life without the fog of emotion or ego. And that clarity can only come from discipline. When you're ruled by desire, your decisions are reactive. You chase what feels good. You retreat when it hurts. You drift wherever the current pulls you. But when you're guided by discipline, you choose your path, and the current must bend to your will. This is how Musashi won his duels. He didn't fight for glory, money, or revenge. He fought to understand himself, to test the strength of his training against the uncertainty of the world. He viewed every opponent not as an enemy, but as a reflection of his own weaknesses. When he walked into battle, his mind was already calm, his actions already decided. The fight was over before it began, because his discipline had already chosen victory. Desire is the first defeat. Musashi wrote, "Do not pursue pleasure for its own sake. Do not, under any circumstances, depend on a partial feeling." He understood that pleasure, comfort, indulgence, ego dulls the blade of the mind. It makes you predictable, controllable, easy to defeat. The untrained man lives like a leaf in the wind, chasing after comfort, reacting to every craving. But the disciplined man walks like a mountain. He moves only with purpose. In modern life, desire takes many forms. The craving for validation, the hunger for attention, the addiction to comfort and approval. These are not small distractions. They are spiritual poison. Every time you act from desire instead of purpose, you lose power. You surrender your mind to the external world. Musashi's way was the opposite: detach, observe, act with intention. He practiced the art of doing without wanting, of moving without seeking reward. When you train yourself to act without attachment, you become free, because no one can manipulate what does not crave. The discipline of simplicity. Musashi lived in simplicity by choice. He wore rough clothes, ate basic food, carried few possessions. This wasn't poverty, it was power. He believed possessions and comforts create invisible chains that tie the spirit down. Every extra desire becomes a distraction from the way. He said, "Do nothing that is of no use." Those 6 words contain a lifetime of wisdom. In a world of noise, endless options, and constant stimulation, doing nothing of no use is a radical act. It means stripping away what doesn't serve your growth. Not just things, but thoughts, habits, and relationships that dilute your focus. Discipline, in Musashi's world, was never about punishment. It was about clarity, seeing life as it truly is, and cutting away the excess. To live by Musashi's rule today, eliminate what wastes your energy. Question every habit. Ask constantly, does this strengthen or weaken me? The more you remove, the more you will sharpen. A blade cannot be sharpened with comfort, only friction. Modern application, the 3 layers of discipline. Musashi's approach can be translated into 3 simple layers that anyone can practice. 1. Physical discipline, the body as the foundation. Musashi trained relentlessly, believing the body was the vessel of the mind. When you train your body through exercise, endurance, controlled hardship, you send a signal to your mind. I am in command. Physical discipline anchors mental strength. 2. Mental discipline, the mind as the commander. Mental training is learning to hold focus amidst distraction. Musashi practiced endless repetition with his sword, not to perfect form, but to erase hesitation. In our world, this means eliminating excuses, finishing what you start, and practicing presence even in boredom. 3. Spiritual discipline, the soul as the source. Musashi's greatest strength was spiritual, an unwavering alignment with purpose. He sought no fame or recognition, only mastery. When your actions come from principle instead of impulse, your willpower becomes self-sustaining. The paradox of the way. Musashi's path seems harsh to modern ears. Austere, lonely, almost cold. But beneath the discipline was freedom. He wasn't denying life's pleasures. He was simply refusing to be controlled by them. That is the essence of unbreakable willpower, to experience the world without being enslaved by it. He wrote, "To win any battle, you must fight as if you're already dead." This is not a call to nihilism. It is a declaration of fearlessness. The moment you stop clinging, you stop hesitating. When you remove the fear of loss, the fear of failure, and the obsession with comfort, what remains is pure will. Musashi's discipline wasn't just self-control, it was self-liberation. He mastered desire not to suppress life, but to engage with it fully without weakness. Reflection. To follow Musashi's second teaching, discipline over desire. Begin small but consistent. Delay gratification daily. Wait before indulging impulses. Set boundaries for distraction. Schedule your pleasures. Don't let them command you. Practice doing one thing with full presence. The goal is not to live without pleasure, but to live without dependence on pleasure. When you can act from principle, not craving, you become free. And freedom, in Musashi's world, is the purest form of strength. Step by step, walk the 1,000-mile road. The way is not mastered in a day, nor through emotion. It is walked in silence, through discipline that endures long after desire fades. The second ring of Musashi's teaching closes with this truth. To master your life, you must first master your impulses. Only then does the will become unbreakable. The spirit of the thing is to win through calmness. Miyamoto Musashi, The Book of 5 Rings. When Musashi wrote about the art of war, he wasn't merely describing combat. He was revealing the structure of the mind in motion. In battle, chaos is inevitable. Blades flash, dust rises, hearts race. And yet, the true master remains still inside. Stillness in Musashi's world did not mean the absence of movement. It meant the absence of disturbance. It meant that even in the storm, the warrior's mind remains clear, able to see, decide, and act with precision. This was Musashi's third secret to unbreakable willpower, to be unmoved by movement. The calm, eye in the storm. Imagine a battlefield, not of swords, but of modern life. Deadlines closing in, messages piling up, endless demands pulling your attention apart. You feel tension rise, your focus scattered like arrows in the wind. Musashi would say, "You have already lost," because to him, losing control of your inner state was the true defeat, not the loss of a fight, but the loss of composure. He wrote, "Make your combat stance your everyday stance." This meant your way of being should not depend on circumstances. You should not be calm only when life is calm. or focused only when life is easy. Your discipline must remain constant, like the pulse of the earth beneath your feet. In this lies the essence of stillness in motion, to cultivate a presence so rooted that no chaos can uproot it. Musashi practiced this in every duel. While others relied on emotion, anger, fear, aggression, he relied on emptiness. He allowed no emotion to dictate his blade. His strikes came not from rage, but from pure awareness, detached, decisive, alive. He moved as if guided by silence. Motion without emotion. In the Book of Water, Musashi described the perfect warrior as fluid, adaptable, and steady. Water moves around obstacles, yet remains whole. It does not resist, it adjusts. He wrote, "Water adopts the shape of its receptacle. It is sometimes a trickle, sometimes a wild sea." To embody willpower in the real world, you must become like water, flexible yet unyielding in purpose. You do not resist life's challenges, nor do you chase them. You flow through them. But this requires something rare in our time: mental detachment. The ability to observe life without being consumed by it. When things go wrong, most people drown in reaction. They complain, panic, or freeze. Musashi teaches the opposite. Do not rush. Do not cling. Simply respond from clarity. That is the practice of stillness in motion. Not the denial of emotion, but mastery over it. The sword and the mind are one. Musashi said, "From one thing, note 10,000 things." He meant that mastery in one domain reveals the principles of all others. The stillness that guides a sword strike is the same stillness that guides a decision, a conversation, a business, a life. To wield your will effectively, you must unite thought and action into one. There should be no hesitation between decision and execution. That gap, the pause filled with doubt, fear, or indecision, is where weakness enters. When the mind hesitates, the body falters. When a mind commits, the body follows effortlessly. Musashi trained to remove that hesitation. Through endless repetition, he turned intention into instinct, so that when his blade moved, it was not separate from his mind. This is how willpower becomes effortless, not through tension, but through unity. You, too, can practice this in your daily life. When you decide, act immediately. When you begin, finish. When you face a problem, breathe, center yourself, and move. Action without chaos is mastery. Stillness in the modern mind. The modern world glorifies speed, constant movement, endless doing. But Musashi's wisdom teaches that true mastery is not in doing more, but in doing with awareness. We are surrounded by noise, digital, emotional, mental. The average person's attention is shattered into fragments. Musashi's stillness offers the antidote: deep, singular focus. He would train for hours in silent fields, not for perfection of technique, but to cultivate presence. To him, awareness was the highest skill, the ability to see all, hear all, and remain unmoved. He wrote, "Perception is strong, sight is weak. Most people see only what is obvious, the surface, but perception, born of stillness, sees beneath the surface, the motives, the patterns, the truth." When you train your mind to be still amidst chaos, you see reality as it is. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop fighting the storm and start using its wind. The paradox of stillness. There is a misconception that stillness means inactivity. But for Musashi, stillness was control. It was the invisible discipline that guided every movement. Imagine a warrior walking into battle. His heart may race, his muscles may tense, but his spirit remains like a calm lake. Every breath is measured, every motion deliberate. That is stillness in motion, action guided by calm intention. In our modern battles, stillness is the mind that stays focused during crisis. The professional who keeps working when others panic. The individual who keeps their word even when unseen. Stillness is not about slowing down. It's about remaining centered while moving forward. The practice of presence. To embody Musashi's stillness, Integrate these daily rituals. Single task focus. Do one thing at a time. Give it your full attention. When you eat, just eat. When you work, just work. Controlled breathing. Before reacting emotionally, take 3 slow breaths. Let emotion settle before decision. Observation before action. In every conflict, pause long enough to see the full picture. Musashi called this seeing broadly. Silent mornings. Begin your day in quiet reflection. The first voice you hear should be your own. These practices sharpen perception and reduce reactivity, allowing willpower to flow naturally. Balance of motion and mind. Musashi's wisdom reminds us that movement without thought is chaos, and thought without movement is paralysis. The warrior's strength lies in the harmony between both. Calm thought, decisive motion. He believed mastery was achieved when the inner and outer worlds align, when your body acts as your spirit commands, and your mind remains unshaken by outcomes. To live by this today is to move with purpose and peace. To work, fight, love, and lead with clarity. To face uncertainty with composure. That is how you walk through life like Musashi. Fluid, adaptable, unstoppable. Reflection. The lesson of stillness in motion is simple, yet eternal. Your power does not come from speed, aggression, or emotion. It comes from the calm center that directs them. Train yourself to be calm when others panic. To act when others freeze. To see clearly when others are blind with emotion. This is not the stillness of silence, but the stillness of mastery. And once you cultivate it, you will no longer be tossed by life's storms. You will become the storm itself, moving with deliberate grace, unbroken by chaos. The ultimate aim of martial arts is not having to use them. Miyamoto Musashi. Stillness in motion is the bridge between thought and destiny. It is how you transform willpower from a moment of effort into a lifelong way of being. In strategy, you must know the ways of other disciplines. Miyamoto Musashi, the Book of 5 Rings. To Musashi, mastery was not stillness instead of action, but stillness within action. He saw the world as constant movement, swords clashing, wind shifting, minds reacting, yet believed the true warrior remains unmoved. This wasn't physical immobility, it was mental calm. He called it Haijushin, the everyday mind. The everyday mind is not easily disturbed. It is a state of balance where motion and stillness are one, where the body acts, but the spirit stays anchored. In modern life, this teaching is more vital than ever. We are surrounded by motion, endless change, constant demands, chaos disguised as progress. But the one who can move without losing center becomes unstoppable. The rhythm of life. Musashi believed that everything, from swordsmanship to painting, has rhythm. He wrote, both in fighting and in everyday life, you should be determined though calm. He compared strategy to the beat of a drum or the flow of water, always adapting, yet never chaotic. When a warrior attacks blindly, driven by emotion, he exposes himself. When he freezes in fear, he is crushed. Only balance, the rhythm between aggression and patience, speed and stillness, leads to victory. Modern life mirrors this perfectly. The person who overworks burns out. The one who hesitates misses opportunity. But the one who finds balance between intensity and composure wins both the battle and the war. Musashi's willpower was not rigid. It flowed like water, flexible but directed. That is the paradox of true discipline. To be so grounded that you can move freely. Stillness is not an action. Many mistake stillness for passivity. Musashi knew better. Stillness is not the absence of action. It is the absence of waste. He wrote, fixation is the way to death. Fluidity is the way to life. A warrior who stands still on the battlefield dies. But a mind that can remain still while moving, unshaken, aware, becomes undefeatable. This applies to every aspect of life. When others panic, you remain composed. When others rush, you act with clarity. When others doubt, you continue moving forward quietly, deliberately. That's how Musashi fought. Never frantic, never fearful. He entered battle as if stepping into meditation. Every breath was a decision, every movement a philosophy in motion. Imagine if we approached our daily challenges the same way. Emails, deadlines, arguments, setbacks, not as chaos, but as training grounds for composure. When your inner world is still, outer turbulence cannot touch you. The mirror and the flow. Musashi taught that the warrior's mind must be like a mirror, reflecting everything, clinging to nothing. A mirror doesn't react, it only sees. When fear or anger clouds perception, judgment collapses. But when the mind mirrors reality, clear, unshaken, it perceives truth and acts decisively. This principle is timeless. In any modern pursuit, business, relationships, creativity, success belongs not to the loudest or the fastest, but to the calmest thinker in the room. To cultivate stillness in motion, Musashi advised constant awareness. He said, "The primary thing when you take a sword in your hands is your intention to cut the enemy." Translated for today, know your purpose before you act. Move with clear intention. Do not drift between half decisions and half-hearted efforts. Willpower is drained not by hard work, but by wasted motion, doing without direction. Musashi's stillness preserved his energy. Every move had purpose. Training the unmoving mind. Musashi's training was as mental as it was physical. He practiced swordsmanship until movement became instinct, freeing his mind from overthinking. He believed the mind and body must become one. When you train your body, you are disciplining the mind through repetition. When you quiet your mind, your body acts with natural precision. This unity is willpower embodied. To modern seekers, this is the essence of flow state, the alignment where effort disappears and presence remains. To train this, focus on one task completely, without split attention. Breathe before acting, always respond, never react. When distracted, return immediately to center. The mind that can return to stillness quickly is the mind that never truly loses it. Adapting to the enemy. Musashi's philosophy of stillness in motion also teaches strategic adaptability. He wrote, "In battle, if you make your opponent flinch, you have already won." This wasn't about intimidation, it was psychological mastery. If you remain calm when others lose composure, you control the rhythm of the fight. Life's enemies are not swordsmen, but circumstances, rejection, delay, failure, doubt. Most people flinch when life strikes. They lose focus, emotion overtakes reason. But the Musashi mindset stays balanced. You adjust, not react. You bend, but don't break. You endure, but never retreat mentally. That is unbreakable will in action, flexibility without surrender. Modern application. The 4 practices of inner stillness. To cultivate stillness amid modern chaos, apply these principles drawn from Musashi's discipline. 1. Breathing before battle. Before you respond to a challenge, pause and breathe once deeply. That single moment breaks emotional reactivity and restores awareness. 2. Intentional movement. Never rush without purpose. Whether speaking, writing, or acting, know your aim before motion. Purpose anchors you in clarity. 3. Observation without judgment. Train the mind to see events as they are, not as you wish them to be. Judgment clouds perception. Observation reveals truth. 4. Presence over perfection. Musashi never waited for perfect conditions. He acted within imperfection, finding clarity through motion. The pursuit of perfection paralyzes the weak. The pursuit of presence empowers the strong. The lesson of the Wind Book. In the Book of 5 Rings, the 4th section, the Wind Book, symbolizes understanding others' ways. Musashi studied rival schools not to copy them, but to remain adaptable. He knew that rigidity breeds defeat. Stillness in motion is the art of adjusting to reality while staying anchored in principle. In a changing world, it means evolving without losing yourself. He wrote, "When you appreciate the power of nature, knowing rhythm in all things, You can adapt and remain unshaken. Reflection. True willpower is not constant motion, nor complete stillness. It is the balance between both, movement guided by calm purpose. The modern warrior who learns this finds peace even in pressure, clarity even in conflict, and strength even in uncertainty. Musashi's third secret is timeless. Be still while you move, and move while you are still. In this balance, every action becomes meditation, and every challenge an opportunity to remain centered. The ultimate aim of martial arts is not having to use them. Miyamoto Musashi. The same is true for willpower. The goal is not to struggle endlessly against the world, but to reach a state where the world can no longer disturb your peace. The calm within movement. That is the warrior's true victory. To know 10,000 things, know one well. Miyamoto Musashi, The Book of Five Rings. When the noise of the world grows loud, the warrior retreats to silence. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom, because silence is not emptiness. It is where truth echoes most clearly. Musashi spent the final years of his life alone in a cave called Ryagando, the Cave of Enlightenment. There, surrounded by stone and wind, he wrote the Book of Five Rings. He had lived as a swordsman, strategist, artist, and philosopher, but in solitude, he became something greater, a mirror of human while stripped of all illusions. To understand Musashi's willpower, one must understand his solitude. Solitude as strength. In a society that fears being alone, solitude is often mistaken for loneliness. But for Musashi, solitude was the dojo of the mind, a place where the self could be refined without distraction. He wrote, "Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world." When we are constantly surrounded by others, our thoughts echo what they say, our desires mirror what they chase. Solitude, however, is where you discover who you are when the world is silent. It strips away the false layers, pride, fear, conformity, leaving only the essence of your will. Most people today run from solitude. They fill every quiet moment with noise, every pause with stimulation, every silence with scrolling. But Musashi embraced it. He knew that solitude is not an escape from life. It is a confrontation with it. In silence, there is no one to impress, no mask to wear, no applause to seek. There is only you and the truth you've avoided. That is where willpower is truly tested, not in public victories, but in private battles. The cave within, Ryagando, was not just a physical place. It was a symbol of inner withdrawal, of turning inward to face the unseen. Musashi's greatest opponent was no longer another swordsman. It was himself. He wrote the Book of Five Rings not as a manual for war, but as a reflection on existence. Every stroke of his brush was a meditation on mastery, not over others, but over self. He wrote, "The way is in training, not in glory." That training never ends, even in isolation. In solitude, you begin to see the restlessness of your own mind. You realize how much of your life is spent seeking validation, how fragile your peace becomes when the noise fades. But if you endure the silence long enough, something profound happens. Your mind stops fighting it, and in that surrender, you awaken an inner power, calm, focused, unshakable. This is why Musashi chose to live apart from the world in his final years. He had mastered combat. Now he sought to master himself, to remove every dependence, every craving, every attachment that weakened the spirit. He walked the path of the lone warrior not because he rejected humanity, but because he wished to understand it from a higher place, from stillness. The power of solitary focus. In solitude, Musashi discovered the power of deep focus, the kind of concentration that modern life rarely allows. Without distraction, time slowed. A single movement of the sword became eternity. A brushstroke became meditation. He found beauty in simplicity, mastery in repetition. He understood that solitude is not isolation, it is immersion. When you work alone, without applause or judgment. You do it for truth. And truth sharpens the will more than any competition ever could. Modern life glorifies collaboration and connection. And while they have value, they can also dilute the individual. Musashi's solitude reminds us that greatness often requires periods of withdrawal. Time to listen to your own thoughts, to refine your purpose, to return stronger. If you never learn to stand alone, your strength will always depend on others. But when you can walk alone, you carry the power of 10,000 men. The dangers of isolation and the balance of connection. Musashi's solitude was purposeful, not permanent. Even he warned against becoming detached from life. He wrote, "You must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain." Meaning, do not confuse solitude with superiority. The goal of being alone is not to reject the world, but to return to it clearer, stronger, and more self-directed. Isolation without purpose weakens the spirit. Solitude with purpose tempers it. So the modern warrior must find balance. Moments of withdrawal to sharpen awareness, and moments of return to apply what was learned. Spend time in silence, but don't flee from life. Walk alone to remember who you are, then walk among others to serve what you become. Modern application: the 3 gifts of solitude. Musashi's approach to solitude offers 3 timeless benefits for building unbreakable willpower. 1. Clarity of thought. When you are alone, the noise of others fades, and your mind reveals its true state. Journaling, meditation, or simply walking in silence helps you recognize your recurring thoughts and whether they serve or enslave you. 2. Independence of spirit. Solitude trains you to rely on your own judgment. Musashi never needed approval because his validation came from discipline itself. When you learn to move without applause, you become unstoppable. 3. Depth of presence. Alone, every detail sharpens, the sound of breath, the feeling of time. In this awareness, willpower deepens because you stop escaping discomfort. You face it directly until it becomes familiar, even sacred. The warrior's loneliness. Musashi's life was not without pain. He fought duels that ended lives. He lived without family, without lasting companionship. His loneliness was real, but he transformed it into purpose. He turned solitude into study, pain into wisdom, isolation into enlightenment. The loneliness of the warrior is not sadness, it is devotion. A devotion to walk a path few understand, to train when others rest, to think deeply when others chase distraction, to master self when others surrender to comfort. In this devotion lies peace, a peace that no external comfort can offer. Reflection. Musashi's 4th secret reveals this truth. The path to unbreakable willpower passes through solitude, not as punishment, but as purification. When you walk alone, you learn what truly sustains you. You discover the depth of your strength and the weakness of your dependencies. Spend time in silence each day. Let solitude become your training ground. When you return to the world, you'll find that its noise no longer controls you, because you've already faced something louder, your own mind. If you know the way broadly, you will see it in everything. In solitude, Musashi saw that every art, every movement, every breath contain the same truth. Mastery begins within, and to master the world, you must first befriend the silence inside it. The lone warrior is never truly alone, for within him walks every version of himself, each one forged stronger through solitude. Today is victory over yourself of yesterday. Tomorrow is your victory over lesser men. Miyamoto Musashi. The final lesson of Musashi's way is not about the sword. It is about the spirit, the part of you that no blade can cut, no failure can destroy, and no storm can shake. Musashi's entire life was a relentless dialogue with himself. He didn't seek to dominate others. He sought to dominate the self that hesitated, doubted, and feared. And through that lifelong battle, he forged what every warrior seeks, an unbreakable spirit. This final teaching is the heart of his philosophy. That mastery is not an achievement, but a state of being, a way of living so aligned with purpose that even defeat becomes a form of progress. The way never ends. Musashi's life was not a straight line to victory. He suffered defeats in his youth, wandered for years as a ronin, and lived without luxury or peace. But in every hardship, he saw opportunity, not to escape, but to strengthen. He wrote, "The true science of martial arts means practicing them in such a way that they will be useful at any time, and to teach them in such a way that they will be useful in all things." This is the essence of the way, to live in a manner where every experience, success or suffering, becomes training. The way never ends because life never stops teaching. The moment you believe you've arrived, your spirit begins to decay. Musashi understood this, which is why he called himself a student of the way until his final breath. For him, mastery was not a destination. It was an orientation, a way of walking through life with curiosity, humility, and courage, living without fear. Fear is the shadow that follows every step of ambition. Fear of failure, of judgment, of loss. Musashi learned to move beyond fear by confronting it daily, by placing himself in situations where hesitation meant death. He said, "The important thing in strategy is not to fear, but to make the enemy fear you." But the enemy he spoke of was not another swordsman. It was the part of the self that trembles in uncertainty. The warrior who conquers fear doesn't eliminate it. He simply acts in spite of it. In the modern world, fear wears different masks. Fear of change, of rejection, of being misunderstood. Yet the principle remains. When you step forward despite fear, you will grow. When you retreat, you will shrink. Musashi lived as though every day was a duel, not with death, but with hesitation. He refused to let fear dictate his motion. And in doing so, he discovered that courage is not loud or reckless. It is quiet, steady, and consistent. The unbreakable spirit is not fearless. It is unshaken. Detachment and clarity. One of Musashi's final teachings was detachment, not from life itself, but from the emotions that cloud judgment. He wrote, "Do not let the body be dragged along by mind, nor be dragged along by the body. Both mind and body should be turned on the way of the void." The void, in Musashi's philosophy, is the state beyond attachment, the calm that exists when desire, fear, and ego dissolve. It's not emptiness in the negative sense, but rather spaciousness, the freedom to act with perfect clarity. When you are detached, your energy is not wasted on worry or greed. You become fully present. You can give yourself entirely to the moment, knowing you have nothing to lose because you already carry everything you need within. Musashi lived this truth. He owned almost nothing, depended on no one, and feared no outcome. This detachment made him unpredictable, unstoppable, free. In our world, this teaching is revolutionary. We chase validation, cling to possessions, and measure our worth by comparison. But when you detach from the noise, your mind becomes light, your decisions clean, your will indestructible. Detachment does not mean apathy. It means clarity without craving. It means doing what is right, not what feels right. It means serving purpose over pleasure, turning knowledge into being. Knowledge, Musashi taught, is nothing without embodiment. He warned against those who talk about the way but never walk it. From one thing, note 10,000 things. This means true understanding is revealed through application. When you master one thing deeply, you begin to see its patterns in everything else. For Musashi, swordsmanship was a metaphor for life itself. How you grip the sword is how you grip your fate. How you breathe in battle is how you breathe through difficulty. How you stand under pressure reveals how you live. His discipline on the battlefield was a reflection of his discipline in thought, in art, in silence. Because willpower is not something you summon. It's something you become through repetition, intention, and truth. To live by the way in modern life means to turn your principles into practice. If you value focus, live without distraction. If you value peace, speak less, and listen more. If you value mastery, commit to one thing until it reflects your soul. The everyday way. Musashi's genius was not in grand gestures, but in the ordinary. He turned every moment into practice, walking, eating, observing, drawing. Each was done with presence and purpose. He believed enlightenment was not found in temples or texts, but in the quiet excellence of daily living. Pay attention even to trifles. The unbreakable spirit is not born from extraordinary acts, but from ordinary acts performed with extraordinary awareness. When you brush your teeth with focus, that is training. When you speak truth instead of comfort, that is battle. When you finish what you start, even when no one sees, that is victory. Musashi's way is not distant or abstract. It lives in every moment you choose to act with integrity. Legacy of the way. In his final days, as he wrote from his cave, Musashi was not trying to be remembered. He was simply recording truth so that others might walk the same path within themselves. He died as he lived, calm, alert, unafraid. His final writings, the Dakoto, The Path of Aloneness, contained 21 precepts, each a blade of wisdom honed to simplicity. Among them, accept everything just the way it is. Do not seek pleasure for its own sake. Resentment and complaint are appropriate neither for oneself nor others. Never stray from the way. These are not merely rules. They are reminders that strength begins with acceptance, peace begins with detachment, and willpower begins with surrender to discipline. Musashi's spirit lives not in his victories, but in his stillness. Not in his battles, but in his clarity. Not in his fame, but in his refusal to waver. The modern warrior's promise. You may not wield a sword, but you wield choices. You face no physical duels, but you battle distraction, temptation, and doubt every day. The path of the modern warrior is no different. Your dojo is your mind. Your sword is your decision. Your opponent is the self that resists growth. To live with unbreakable willpower is to rise every morning with purpose, to act without needing motivation, to stand firm in chaos, to walk alone when you must, and to move forward when others stop. Musashi's life was proof that the strongest weapon is the disciplined mind, and that true victory is inner peace unshaken by circumstance. Reflection, living by the way. To embody the spirit of Musashi, practice daily discipline, no matter how small. Repetition engraves strength. Seek solitude, even briefly. Silence reveals clarity. Balance motion and stillness. Act swiftly, but remain calm within. Detach from outcomes. Focus on the process, not the applause. Live by principle. Let integrity guide every step. When you live this way, life itself becomes your training. Every challenge becomes sharpening. Every failure becomes refinement. Every moment becomes the way. Epilogue, the silent sword. There is nothing outside of yourself that can ever enable you to get better, stronger, richer, quicker, or smarter. Everything is within. Everything exists. Seek nothing outside of yourself. Miyamoto Musashi. The secret of unbreakable willpower is not in the sword, nor in the struggle. It lies in the silence, in the moment you face yourself and decide never to surrender. Musashi's wisdom endures because it speaks to something eternal. The human spirit's yearning to rise above weakness, to find meaning through mastery, and to live aligned with truth. He reminds us that every person, no matter how ordinary, carries a warrior within, waiting to be awakened by discipline, sharpened by solitude, and guided by stillness. When your will becomes unmoved by comfort, when your mind becomes calm amidst conflict, and when your spirit walks alone yet never feels alone, then you too have found the way. And like Musashi, you will no longer seek strength. You will become it.